The only person I'm sorry to is her mother. That's it. And the family. But other than that, I'm not sorry for all the hell you guys had to go through, for lying.
On August 3rd, 2007, 27-year-old Joshua Wade snuck into the home of his Anchorage neighbor, Mindy Schloss, and threatened her until she provided him with her ATM card and PIN number. Then he tied up the 52-year-old nurse, forced her into her car, drove an hour north, took her into the woods, fired a fatal shot to her head, and set her deceased body on fire. What makes someone kill? Is it their upbringing? Is it mental illness? Step into the mind of a serial killer as we unravel the haunting tale of Joshua Wade. We will go over his disturbing past, his innocent victims, and the justice that was served to this cold-blooded murderer. Because there are people who do not think Joshua was a serial killer, let's define what is a serial killer. The definition of a serial killer, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, is a serial murderer who has committed 2 or more murders separated in time and often in widely different geographic areas, and involving victims who are usually strangers. The murders are usually compulsive acts for gratification based on fantasies. Joshua Allen Wade was born in Great Falls, Montana on March 13, 1980, to parents who had a tumultuous relationship. By the time he was 7, his parents broke up and his father moved to Anchorage, Alaska, leaving Joshua behind. Between his upbringing, his parents' split, and his father's move, all of this may have helped cause Joshua's behavior to spiral out of control. He began displaying strong, aggressive habits and an uncontrollable, violent side at the age of 10. He was already familiar with the law regarding violence and minor offenses by the age of 12. He was imprisoned and freed for one offense after another in his earlier years, spending most of that time in and out of detention centers. By the time he was 16, he was carrying a handgun, and by the time he was 19, he was a full-fledged felon. Wade also had a failed relationship that greatly affected him. He publicly stated his disdain of women, especially Alaskan Native women, according to his father, sister, and several acquaintances. At the age of 20, Wade brutally assaulted and murdered 33-year-old Alaskan native Della Brown in September 2000. He used a rock to shatter her skull. Della's skull was so badly fractured, according to the coroner, that it looked like a bag of ice. In 2003, Joshua Wade was put on trial for the heinous murder of Della Brown. However, he was merely found guilty of evidence tampering and received a 6.5-year prison term. It came to light that Brown's body had been found many days earlier, and that numerous evil onlookers had stood lighting matches to observe the decomposing corpse. But nobody ever bothered contacting the police. Wade was found to have been only another crazy bystander who gave a brazen confession regarding the murder, which he then recanted only to impress his fellow hooligans. Just a few months after being freed in 2007, Wade immediately returned to his criminal activities. The woman he chose as his next victim was someone he truly felt a perverse affinity to. It was his next-door neighbor, a woman he enjoyed spying on. On August 3, 2007, Joshua broke into the home of Mindy Schloss, an Anchorage-based public health nurse, and threatened her until she gave him her ATM card and PIN code. The 52-year-old nurse was then tied up, coerced into her car, driven an hour north, taken into the woods, shot in the head, and had her corpse set ablaze. One day after she did not show up for work or answer any calls, one of her friends officially reported her missing by calling the Anchorage Police Department. Authorities reportedly arrived at her home to investigate after discovering a huge mess inside and the absence of her car. Detectives initially suspected Robert Conway, Mindy Schloss's longtime boyfriend, while looking into her disappearance, but they quickly ruled him out after verifying his alibi. Additionally, they conducted interviews with Schloss's neighbors and learned that she frequently clashed with her nosy next-door neighbor. Her bank account reportedly showed activity after her last known location on August 3rd. Officials discovered that a male who was unidentified made 2 $500 cash withdrawals and was seen on the ATM CCTV tape. Her car was seen abandoned at the airport as well. One of Mindy Schloss's neighbors, Kathy Easley, eventually came forward and informed police about another neighbor, Joshua Wade, who lived next door to Schloss and had been acting strangely during the 52-year-old's murder investigation. Easley claimed to have witnessed him watching her as she spoke with the police. Kathy Easley reported on her conversation with a man named Josh, saying,
I just wanted to come talk to you. I know police are around the neighborhood. I don't want you to tell them that I live next door. I have a warrant out for my arrest.
and I was like, for what? And he was like,
I broke into a drug dealer's home.
and I was like, that doesn't even make sense. It did freak me out a little bit. A municipal worker discovered Mindy Schloss's badly burned, decomposing remains more than a month after she originally vanished in a rural area adjacent to Nick Goose Bay Road, about 5 miles from Wasilla. According to reports, the body's identification as Schloss was made using dental records. She was shot in the back of the head, which is what caused her death, according to additional investigation. Given Joshua Wade's prior criminal histories and the fact that he had been charged with murdering 33-year-old Della Brown in 2000, authorities were already aware of him. Wade's DNA was a perfect match for samples taken from Mindy Schloss's car, and a photo of a gun that looked like the one used to kill her was on Wade's phone. Additionally, Wade was connected by zip ties that matched the ones that were left on Mindy's floor, and canines picked up Wade's scent in her abandoned car. Wade admitted responsibility and was found guilty in 2009 of kidnapping and killing Mindy Schloss in 2007. Wade additionally admitted to killing Della Brown in 2000 as part of that conviction. For the entire conduct, the Alaska Superior Court sentenced the defendant to 99 years to serve, and the U.S. District Court sentenced the defendant to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Wade was originally sentenced to a minimum of 66 years in prison by the Department of Corrections for the state of Alaska before becoming eligible for parole based on the state conviction. Wade would be sent to the Federal Bureau of Prisons to spend the rest of his life in prison for the federal conviction and would not be eligible for parole if he received it. Wade agreed to divulge details about 3 murders for which he eventually admitted involvement under the conditions of a later settlement with state and federal law enforcement. In return, the prosecution consented to move Wade from a state prison to a federal maximum security facility outside of Alaska where he would carry out his life term. Wade admitted to being responsible for the 1994 and 1999 murders of 2 men in Anchorage. The 1994 unsolved death of 38-year-old John Michael Martin, who allegedly died from a single gunshot wound in May 1994 close to a cycling path that crosses Northern Lights Boulevard. Shortly after leaving the neighborhood Village Inn eatery, he was killed. Martin reportedly visited the Village Inn for at least 5 years. He frequently stopped over to meet pals for coffee, both during the day and at night. The night of the murder, when he left to walk home at 2:30 a.m., neither he nor anyone else in his immediate vicinity showed any signs of being unhappy. He was discovered dead, nevertheless, 30 minutes later. According to the victim's sister, he was an unemployed schizophrenic. Detectives followed every clue they could find before Wade's confession, but his case remained unsolved for years. A maintenance worker at the Alaska Budget Motel in Fairview reportedly discovered Henry Onto Wazrock's body in room 221 in December 1999, per a Daily News report. The victim had been confirmed dead for 2 days at the time of the finding, the medical examiner later verified. He had apparently been staying at the motel at East 4th Avenue and Gamble Street for some time when he was killed, paying $194 in state-subsidized rent each week. He also had a case manager for mental health. Even though Wade claims he is not a serial killer, the courts disagreed. According to reports, Joshua Wade is currently serving his sentence at the U.S. Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. The families of the victims have my sympathy, and I hope the victims are resting in peace.